This is Folake. At just 12 years old, she had felt more pain and hardship than most people do in a lifetime. Born and raised on the streets by a mentally ill mother, Folake had no father, no home, and no one to fight for her future. She spent only 2 years in school before dropping out. The one woman paying her fees disappeared. Hopeless, forgotten, yet incredibly smart. But one day everything changed. She met Michelle, the daughter of a billionaire. Michelle studied in the best school money could buy, yet struggled to learn. And it was Folake, the barefoot girl from the gutter, who became her secret teacher. But when Michelle's powerful father found a homeless child teaching his daughter under a mango tree, what he did next will leave you speechless. So grab your popcorn, sit back, and get ready for one of the most powerful stories you've ever heard. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button to support more inspiring stories like this one. Dirty thing, I said leave here. A wet glob of spit landed just inches from Folake's bare feet. She didn't move. She'd grown used to the insults. The market woman's voice cut through the air again. Is this a rubbish ground? You and that mad woman better move before I pour water on you. Folake held tighter to her mother, Owumi, who sat barefoot beside the gutter. Owumi mumbled to herself and drew patterns in the dust with one shaking finger. Her wrapper had fallen halfway, showing scars and dirt, but Owumi didn't notice. She was lost in another world, one that only she could see. People walked past. Some slowed down, some stared. One woman paused, shook her head, and kept walking. No one helped. No one ever did. Folake was 12 years old, but the streets had aged her soul. She didn't cry anymore when people called her names. Daughter of a mad woman. Gutter girl. Cursed child. She'd heard them all. What hurt more was the pity, the empty kind that came with a shake of the head and no hand of help. Her mother used to be beautiful, or so Folake imagined. On rare, clear days, Owumi would sing old Yoruba lullabies and call Folake princess. But those moments were like shooting stars, brief and gone before you could touch them. Most days, Owumi couldn't even remember where she was. She'd scream at her reflection in puddles, throw stones at shadows, and run from imagined monsters. Folake had no father, not even a name, not even a photo. Who's my daddy? She'd once asked years ago. Owumi had looked at her with empty eyes and replied, I don't know. The rain. Maybe the rain. That was the end of that conversation. They slept under a broken kiosk near mile 12. If it rained, they got wet. If it was hot, they burned. Their mattress was a flat carton. Their blanket was silence. Folake didn't even know what it meant to dream anymore. Survival was the only language she spoke. Each morning began the same way. Owumi waking up screaming, clawing at the air. Folake would grab her, hold her close, whisper, It's me, mommy. It's me. Then she'd gently clean her up, sometimes with just a rag and water from a gutter pipe, then lead her back to the same begging spot on the street. Her mother begged. Folake watched. That was their life. Sometimes people dropped coins. Mostly they dropped insults. Mommy, don't talk today, okay? Folake whispered that morning. She tucked her mother's wrapper more tightly around her. Just sit. Just be quiet. But Owumi suddenly stood and shouted at a passing car, Give me my wings. I left them in your boot. The driver honked and swerved. Folake felt her cheeks burn. She turned and met the eyes of a schoolgirl across the street, neatly dressed, holding a lunchbox. The girl stared for a moment, then quickly looked away, whispering to her friend and laughing. Folake looked down at her own legs, covered in dust, her toenails chipped, her hands dry. Her stomach rumbled, but she ignored it. Hunger was a constant friend. Still, beneath it all, she dreamed. She dreamed of sitting in a classroom, raising her hand to answer questions. She dreamed of wearing a uniform, writing in notebooks, reading books that weren't soaked in rainwater or torn at the edges. She dreamed of someone, anyone, calling her by name without hate. But who would send the daughter of a mad woman to school? Who would care about a girl whose mother chased birds because she thought they were demons? Nobody, and yet Folake still hoped. She watched children pass with their backpacks and neat braids. She whispered to herself, one day. One day I will sit in a real classroom. One day I will escape this cursed corner of Lagos. One day my mother will smile again and know my name." But as she reached into her bag to count the 10 naira note and the 3 coins they had gotten so far, she heard a hawker shout behind her, "Thunderfire poverty." Folake didn't look back. She just held her mother tighter and whispered, "Amen." It started with a plate of jollof rice. Folake had been crouching beside her mother near a shabby food stand that afternoon. Her stomach was tying itself into knots from hunger. Her mother was having one of her silent days, just rocking back and forth like a broken record, her eyes unfocused, lips twitching. That's when Folake noticed a woman watching her from across the road. The woman stood behind a steaming food stand. Plastic chairs, a wooden table, 2 coolers, and the smell of cooked rice and pepper soup. She was fair-skinned, full-bodied, and wore a simple Ankara gown. There was something in her gaze, something that wasn't pity. Folake looked away, embarrassed. She hated being watched like an animal in a zoo. Minutes later, the woman crossed the road and stood in front of her. "What's your name?" she asked gently. Folake stared at her bare feet, then whispered, "Folake." "Where's your mother?" Folake pointed at the woman beside her, who was now singing to an empty bottle. The woman's eyes softened. "She's sick, isn't she?" Folake nodded. "What did you eat today?" Folake didn't answer. Instead of asking more, the woman held out a covered takeaway plate. "Here, eat." Folake hesitated. Strangers didn't give food without expecting something in return, something she wasn't willing to give. "Don't worry," the woman smiled. "I'm not like the others." That was the first time she met Auntie Helen. The food was hot, the rice sweet, the meat soft. Folake hadn't eaten meat in months. That same evening, Auntie Helen returned with bottled water and soap. "What's your story, child?" she asked as she helped Folake wash her hands. Folake told her everything: the madness, the market, the school she once peeped into, the hunger, the hope, the dreams. She didn't cry, but her voice cracked. Auntie Helen wiped her hands with a handkerchief. "Tomorrow, come to my shop. You'll help me clean. In return, I'll feed you. Deal?" Folake nodded so hard her head almost fell off. The next day, Folake came. She swept, she washed plates, she served customers. And she watched Auntie Helen carefully, how she smiled at people, how she ran her small business with quiet power. One afternoon, Folake sat under the counter, writing numbers in the sand with a stick. Auntie Helen leaned down and asked, "Where did you learn that?" Folake answered, "From watching the school near the express road. I memorized what the teacher said." The woman blinked. "You mean you never went to school?" "I did once. For 3 weeks. Auntie Betty paid, but she moved away." Auntie Helen was silent for a long time. The next week she returned with a gift, a brand new exercise book and a pack of pencils. The week after that, she went a step further. 3 weeks later, Folake stood inside a dusty public school classroom, her hands trembling, heart pounding. She wore a second-hand uniform that Auntie Helen had bought from a thrift market. It was too big, but it felt like a crown. "Behave yourself," Auntie Helen said that morning as she dropped her off. "Make me proud. I don't have money to waste." Folake nodded quickly, holding the nylon bag with her new book like it was gold. The first day was strange. Children stared, some giggled, but the moment the teacher asked a question and Folake answered before anyone else could raise a hand, everything changed. She was smart, too smart. She answered questions older students couldn't. She memorized poems after hearing them once. She wrote with speed and precision. Even the headmistress asked one day, "Who trained this child?" Folake always said, "Auntie Helen." Every evening after class, she returned to the food stand to work. She cleaned, helped serve, and sometimes got to taste leftover soup or fruit. But her real reward was watching Auntie Helen nod in approval and say, "Good girl." It was the first time Folake felt seen, felt loved. Then just when life seemed like it was turning, everything changed. Auntie Helen came home one night holding a white envelope. "My sister in the UK finally processed my papers," she said, tears in her eyes, "after 7 years of waiting." Folake smiled. "So we're traveling." The woman stopped smiling. "No, Folake. Just me." The room grew quiet. Folake blinked. "What about me?" Auntie Helen sighed deeply. I paid for your school up to this term. Maybe God will send someone else to help you. I've done all I can. Folake stared at her plate. She wanted to scream, "Take me with you, please." But she only nodded. 3 weeks later, Auntie Helen was gone. No one said goodbye. No one else came to pay the next term's fees. The headmistress called her one day and said, "We're sorry, Folake. Without fees, you can't remain." She stood outside the school gate for hours clutching her bag, waiting for Auntie Helen to come back. She never did. She waited outside the school gate until the sun began to fall behind the buildings. Her uniform was dusty. Her book bag hugged her side. Flies buzzed near her ear, but she didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the bend of the street where Auntie Helen had promised to return, but that bend remained empty. Folake's stomach rumbled. Her throat burned from the dust she'd swallowed all day. Children walked past in clusters, laughing, chasing each other. Their parents waited with snacks and hugs. No one came for her. Finally, the gateman walked up. "Little girl, it's time to go." Folake nodded slowly. She stood, dusted herself off, and walked away. But she didn't go home. Where was home anyway? The broken kiosk she used to sleep in with her mother now had a new tenant. A drunk who threatened her with a belt the last time she tried to return there. The corner by the bakery where Owumi used to beg was now occupied by 2 boys who sniffed glue and fought anyone who looked at them wrong. The streets had changed while she was gone. The only thing that hadn't changed was her mother. Still mad, still barefoot, still talking to ghosts and demons in the air. When Folake found her by the gutter that night, her mother was trying to feed a dead pigeon with gari soaked in brown rainwater. "Mommy, it's me." "Let's go somewhere safe," Folake whispered, but her mother only hissed and slapped her. Folake wiped the blood from her lip with the back of her hand and sat down beside her anyway. They spent the night curled on the pavement, surrounded by cigarette butts and mosquito bites. Her mother laughed in her sleep. Folake didn't sleep at all. The next morning, she wore her school uniform again. She tied her books in a black nylon and walked back to the school. She waited outside the gate. Maybe they would change their minds. Maybe someone would help her. But when the headmistress passed, she paused and frowned. "Why are you here again? I told you, no fees, no school." "I'll pay. I will," Folake stammered. "How? You and that crazy woman don't even eat well." The words hit like a slap. Teachers passed. Parents stared. Folake's cheeks burned with shame. "Please, Ma, let me just sit at the back." "I won't make noise." The woman shook her head. "Don't disgrace yourself. This is not charity. Leave." And that was it. The gates closed. Folake sat by the wall and cried into her book until the letters blurred. Days turned into weeks. She tried returning to the food stand, but it had a new owner now. Auntie Helen was gone for good. The new woman chased her off. She sold her last pair of decent sandals for 300 naira and used it to buy bread and gari. Her uniform faded into grey. Her exercise book got wet in the rain one night, and the ink ran until all her notes became unreadable. People stopped seeing her as that smart girl. Now she was just another street girl, just another shadow on the roadside. One evening, while trying to find somewhere dry to sleep, she saw a boy no older than 9 light a match and smoke something wrapped in paper. He looked at her and said, "Come join us. It makes you forget when you're hungry." She shook her head and walked away. Her hunger was loud, but her fear of becoming like those boys was louder. She still had one treasure left, her mind. And somehow she still believed that one day, just one day, it would all change. She couldn't help herself, no matter how many times they chased her away, insulted her or mocked her. Folake kept going back. Every morning, while other children were tying their shoelaces and tucking in crisp white shirts, Folake would find her way to the back fence of City Crest Academy, a private school that looked like a palace from her side of the world. The walls were painted gold, the windows had polished glass. The students wore blazers and sparkling shoes, their names stitched neatly onto their uniforms. She didn't belong there, not even close, but it didn't stop her. There was one window cracked open behind a classroom that had a small ledge she could stand on. It was next to an old mango tree where no one ever looked. That was her secret place. From there, she could see everything. The chalkboard, the math problems, the teacher explaining vowels. Folake would mouth the answers quietly to herself, clutching a broken pencil stub like it was sacred. Her notebook had long been destroyed by rain, so she wrote on scraps of paper she found in garbage bins. Old flyers, tissue boxes, anything with a clean side. Each day she stayed until the bell rang. Then she'd vanish before someone spotted her. But one Monday she wasn't fast enough. The teacher noticed her, a ragged girl with bright eyes peeking from behind the window. "Hey, who's that?" the woman yelled. Folake froze. A student turned, pointed and said with disgust, "It's that crazy girl again, the one who follows us." The class burst into laughter. The teacher stormed to the back and opened the door. "What do you want here?" "Who sent you here?" Folake stammered, "I just want to learn. Please, just listen from outside." "Are you mad? Do you think this is a public place?" "No, Ma, but I won't disturb anyone, I promise." "Go and tell your mother to pay school fees first," the teacher barked, "if you even know who your mother is." Folake's lips parted, but no words came out. The teacher grabbed a stick from the table and raised it. Folake turned and ran so fast she didn't feel the tears stinging her cheeks until she reached the next street. She didn't give up. The next day she found another school, Bright Scholars Academy, less fancy but still guarded. She didn't try the window this time. Instead, she crouched outside a broken part of the fence and listened. When children recited their times tables, she whispered along. When they chanted words in English, she repeated after them. Sometimes she even corrected them under her breath. One morning, a boy noticed her and threw a stone. "Witch, go away. You're distracting us." Folake didn't flinch. The stone hit her shoulder, but she held her tears. Another child laughed and shouted, "She's mad like her mummy. Go and learn in psychiatric hospital." Still, she came the next day and the day after that. But pain has a way of piling up. One afternoon, a security guard saw her and dragged her by the arm. "Who are you? You're always sneaking around like a thief." "I'm not a thief, sir. I just want to learn." He didn't listen. He pushed her to the ground and warned, "Next time I see you here, I'll beat you." As she limped away, Folake looked up at the building. The bright walls, the desks, the blackboard, everything she longed for, yet everything she couldn't touch. She sat under a tree and began writing multiplication tables in the dust with a stick. When the wind blew them away, she started again. That night, as her mother babbled beside her in sleep, Folake looked at the stars. "God," she whispered, "why do you make me so smart and then lock the doors to school? Did you give me this brain just to suffer?" There was no answer, just the distant honking of traffic and the quiet sobbing of a child desperate for more than survival. The first time Folake carried a tray of water on her head, her neck nearly snapped from the weight. She was barefoot. The tray was rusted. The sachets of pure water were barely cold, but they were all she could get from Mama Grace's shop on credit. "Don't break any," Mama Grace had warned. "If one falls, you pay. If I see you sitting to rest, you pay." Folake had nodded. She was used to rules that hurt. She adjusted the tray and stepped into the sun. The Lagos road didn't care that she was 12. It didn't care that her feet were blistered or that her shoulders trembled under the heat. All it cared about was hustle. The pure water business was war. Grown women shoved her aside. Boys twice her size called her small mad girl and stole her customers. Buses almost crushed her. Drivers yelled at her, but she kept moving. Every time she sold a sachet, she'd whisper under her breath, 5 naira closer to food. Her goal was simple. Feed her mother. That was it. Nothing fancy. No dreams. No fantasies. Just bread and gari so her mother wouldn't go hungry. By midday, her legs were shaking. Her lips cracked. Her body begged for rest. She found a corner under a faded billboard and sat. She had sold 12 sachets. That was 120 naira. If she sold 10 more, she'd have enough to buy gari and okra. A man walked past, saw her, and dropped 200 naira into her tray. "Go buy something, little one," he said. She blinked. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. But the moment he turned the corner, a teenage boy snatched the money from the tray and ran. She screamed and gave chase, but he vanished into the chaos of the market. Folake stopped. Her chest heaved, her eyes burned. She sat by the gutter and sobbed. People walked past. No one looked twice. That evening, she returned to the roadside where her mother sat, humming to herself and clapping like a child. Folake forced a smile. "Mommy, I brought bread." Her mother looked at her confused. "Who are you? Are you the angel with black wings?" Folake sat beside her. "No, Mommy, I'm Folake, your daughter." Her mother giggled. "My daughter is a star. She fell from the sky and drowned in a bottle of oil. That's what they told me." Folake held her gently and tore the bread into small pieces, feeding her slowly. She didn't eat. She was too tired. Later that night, Folake found a broken mirror by the kiosk they sometimes slept near. She stared into it. Her face was sunburned, her eyes swollen, her lips bleeding from too much heat. She looked nothing like the students in the school she watched. And yet, when she whispered math questions to herself, she still got the answers right. "When you divide 6 by 3, what do you get?" she asked herself quietly. 2. She smiled. No matter how much the world tried to break her, her mind was still sharp, her fire still burned, and that was enough to keep her going. The next day, she was back on the road, tray full, feet raw, heart steady. She was selling water. But in her heart, she was still chasing something bigger. A chance, just one chance to prove that she didn't have to die in the streets. Folake wasn't supposed to be there. Queen's Crest International School had tall, polished gates, guarded by men in navy blue uniforms with radios clipped to their belts. Children arrived in air-conditioned SUVs, escorted by drivers in white gloves. The walls shimmered with fresh paint. The glass windows reflected the sun like diamonds. It was a school for the rich, the elite. Definitely not for the barefoot daughter of a roadside madwoman. But Folake had seen it one too many times from afar, and today something inside her said, "Go closer." She had no money, no plan, and no right, but she had eyes filled with longing, so she crept around the side fence where bush and weeds grew wild. She found a small gap near a drainage pipe and slid in, brushing off thorns as she slipped through. Her heart pounded like a war drum. She expected to be caught immediately, but no one saw her. She walked past flower beds, hiding behind trees, ducking every time she saw a teacher or student. Finally, she found a quiet spot behind a large mango tree near the back field. From there, she could see one of the junior classrooms through a wide open window. She crouched low, pulled out a pencil from her pocket, and began copying the words she heard onto a scrap of nylon. She was halfway through, sounding out a difficult English passage, when she heard a voice behind her. "You're the girl they always chase away, right?" Folake's heart stopped. She spun around. A girl about her age stood there, her hair braided in neat cornrows, her uniform spotless. Her name tag sparkled. "Michelle Agu. I didn't mean any harm," Folake stammered, backing away. "I was just listening." Michelle tilted her head. "Why?" Folake blinked, confused. "Because I want to learn." Michelle walked closer. "You don't go to school?" "No, my mother. She's sick. We live on the streets." Michelle looked down. Her polished black shoes made no sound in the soft grass. "People laugh at me too," she said quietly. "They say I'm dumb, that my dad paid the school to keep promoting me." Folake looked up, surprised. "You?" Michelle nodded. "I don't understand anything they teach in class. Everyone's always ahead of me, so I sit out here during lunch, alone." A long silence passed. Then Michelle smiled. "Do you want to sit?" Folake hesitated. Michelle sat first and patted the ground beside her. Folake slowly lowered herself to the grass. Michelle opened her bag and pulled out a textbook. "Can you teach me this?" "I don't get it." Folake looked at the page. Fractions. She studied it for a moment, then gently took the book. "Okay, so look. When you see 1/2 and 1/4, they don't have the same bottom number." Michelle listened, wide-eyed, as Folake broke it down. Within minutes, Michelle was solving problems she had struggled with all term. "I am," she gasped. I understand. I finally get it." Folake smiled shyly. "You're not dumb." Michelle grinned. "And you're not just smart, you're amazing." They sat under the mango tree for over an hour. When the bell rang, Michelle stood. "Will you come tomorrow?" she asked. Folake hesitated. "They'll chase me." I don't belong here." Michelle narrowed her eyes. "Wait here." She ran off. A few minutes later, she returned with the school security man, following closely behind. "This is my friend," Michelle said firmly. "Her name is Folake. She'll be here tomorrow during lunch. Let her in." The man looked confused. "But she's not—" "She's my friend," Michelle repeated, "and my daddy owns this school. You have a problem with that?" The man blinked and said nothing. Michelle turned to Folake. "Same time tomorrow, okay?" Folake nodded slowly, still not believing what had just happened. As she left the school, she felt something new. Not fear, not shame. Hope. That night, as her mother sang to a broken bottle and danced barefoot in the dark, Folake sat by the gutter and prayed. "God, I met someone today. She saw me. She didn't call me dirty or mad. She listened. Please, let me see her again. Let this not be a dream." Then she slept with a smile on her face. The first in a very, very long time. They met under the mango tree every single day. Same time, same spot. Folake came barefoot in her torn brown gown, clutching a plastic bag with torn papers and a blunt pencil. Michelle came in her ironed uniform with a lunchbox packed by the cook. Two girls from two different worlds. But when they sat under that tree, nothing else mattered. Their friendship grew like a fire in the cold. Michelle laughed more now. She paid attention in class, not because the teachers finally made sense, but because Folake did. "Don't read it like a robot," Folake would whisper. "Read it like you're talking to your best friend." Michelle tried, stumbled, then tried again. And when she got it, Folake clapped with joy like she'd won a trophy. Michelle's eyes would shine. "No one ever claps for me," she once confessed. Folake blinked. "But you're rich. Don't people celebrate you?" Michelle shook her head. "Only when I dress well, or when my dad hosts parties. Not when I get answers right. Not when I improve." That day, Folake held her hand and said something she never thought she would say. "You deserve more." Michelle didn't say anything. She just held Folake's hand tighter. One afternoon, as they shared Michelle's spaghetti and plantain under the tree, Michelle asked, "Do you have a best friend?" "You," Folake replied without thinking. Michelle smiled. "Me too." Then her smile faded. "Folake, what if my daddy finds out? What if he says we can't be friends?" Folake paused. Her spoon hovered over the lunchbox. "Then you'll forget me." "That's how it works." "No," Michelle snapped. "I won't." "He'll be angry," Folake said softly. "Rich men don't want their daughters sitting with girls like me." "My mother begs on the road, Michelle. Some people say she's cursed. They think I'm cursed too." Michelle was quiet. Then she leaned forward and whispered, "You're not cursed. You're magic." Folake blinked, stunned. "Magic?" Michelle nodded firmly. "Yes. Who else can teach better than all my teachers? Who else can make me laugh when I feel like crying? Who else can make a place like this feel like home?" Folake's chest grew tight. Her eyes welled, but she blinked fast to hold back the tears. "Magic," Michelle whispered again. "That's what you are." They started sharing more than food and textbooks. Michelle brought Folake a hairbrush, a small blue notepad, even a pair of slippers once. Though Folake rarely wore them, afraid someone would steal them on the street. Folake, in return, told stories. Real ones and made-up ones. Stories about stars falling in love with street kids, about girls who found schools in dreams, and about mothers who got healed by rain. Michelle listened like every word mattered. And it did. For the first time in her life, Michelle didn't feel alone. And for the first time, Folake didn't feel invisible. But they kept it a secret. Michelle didn't tell her teachers, didn't tell her classmates, definitely didn't tell her father, Chief Benjamin Agu, one of the most feared and respected billionaires in Lagos. She didn't know how to. How do you tell a man who ran oil companies and sat on TV panels that your best friend was a street girl with no shoes? And so, under the mango tree, the two girls built a world of their own. A world where names didn't matter, where background didn't exist, where a billionaire's daughter and a mad woman's child could dream the same dream. Together. One day Folake didn't show up. Michelle sat under the tree, waiting. She checked her watch, 30 minutes, then an hour. Still no Folake. Panic crept into her chest. Had something happened to her? Had she fallen sick? Or worse, had someone chased her again? She stood ready to run to the gate when she heard a soft voice. "Michelle." She turned. There was Folake panting, barefoot, dirt on her legs, but smiling. "I'm sorry I'm late," she said. "My mom, she had an episode, ran into the road. I had to pull her away before she got hit." Michelle rushed forward and hugged her tightly. "I thought you weren't coming." Folake chuckled. "Even if I had to crawl, I would come." Michelle pulled back and looked her in the eye. "One day I'll tell my dad. I promise." Folake swallowed hard. What if he says no? Michelle smiled with fire in her eyes. "Then I'll scream until he says yes." That night, under the dim light of a broken street lamp, Folake lay beside her mother, who was humming to herself, holding a stone like it was a baby. Folake stared at the skyline. "God," she whispered, "I've never had a friend before. Please don't let me lose this one." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the notepad Michelle gave her. On the first page was a drawing. 2 stick girls holding hands under a mango tree, one in uniform, one in rags, both smiling. Folake traced the drawing with her finger and smiled. Then she closed her eyes, and for the first time in her life, she didn't fall asleep afraid. The morning started like any other. Michelle sat through her classes distracted, waiting for the lunch bell. Her fingers tapped her desk restlessly. Her heart was beating faster than usual. The teachers praised her improved performance. She had answered 2 questions correctly in literature. Even the principal mentioned it during assembly. But Michelle didn't care because none of them knew the reason behind the change. It wasn't tutoring from an expensive private coach. It was Folake, the barefoot girl with a powerful mind and a heart bigger than anyone she'd ever known. Michelle couldn't wait to see her. At exactly 12:35 p.m., she was already under the mango tree with 2 spoons, a lunchbox, and Folake's favorite biscuit tucked into the corner. Then she heard it. The low hum of black SUVs rolling into the compound. Students turned to look. Teachers froze mid-sentence. Even the security men adjusted their uniforms and saluted. Michelle's stomach dropped. "Daddy? Why is he here?" Chief Benjamin Agu didn't visit the school without warning. He was too busy for surprises. His name alone carried weight. His presence filled every space before he even spoke. Michelle stood quickly, brushing crumbs from her skirt. She didn't know what to do. Then, before she could act, Folake appeared. Breathless, smiling, barefoot as always. "I'm here," she said. "Sorry, I had to fetch water before leaving." But Michelle wasn't smiling. Her eyes were locked on the figure stepping out of the SUV. Tall, dark-skinned, dressed very well in a black caftan and leather sandals. Chief Benjamin Agu, her father. Folake followed her gaze, her body stiffened. "Is that—" Michelle nodded slowly. "My dad." Folake's smile vanished. Panic crashed through her chest like a wave. "I have to go," she whispered, but it was too late. "Michelle." The deep voice echoed across the lawn. She turned. Chief Benjamin Agu walked forward, followed by 2 assistants. His eyes were sharp, calculating, confused. "What are you doing out here?" he asked. Michelle swallowed hard. "I was having lunch." "With who?" Chief Benjamin Agu looked to his daughter's side and saw Folake, a girl in a torn gown, legs covered in dust, holding a worn-out nylon bag and a half-eaten biscuit. His brow furrowed. "Who is this?" Folake bowed her head. Her mouth opened, but words refused to come out. Her entire body trembled. Michelle stepped in front of her. "This is Folake. She's my friend." "You're—" "What?" "She helps me. She teaches me." Chief Benjamin Agu blinked. "Excuse me?" Michelle took a breath and stood taller. "The reason I've been doing well in school is because of her. She teaches me during lunch every day, and I understand her better than any teacher here." A long, heavy silence followed. Chief Benjamin Agu's eyes remained fixed on the trembling girl behind his daughter. Then he asked quietly, "Who are your parents, child?" Folake barely looked up. Her voice was dry and cracked. "I don't know my father, sir. My mother, she's sick. She begs by the roadside near Oshodi. People call her mad. We have no home." One of the assistants shifted awkwardly. Chief Benjamin Agu's face remained unreadable. "You're not in school." Folake shook her head. Why? No one to pay fees. My only sponsor. She left the country 2 years ago. Michelle grabbed Folake's hand. Chief Benjamin Agu watched the gesture, his daughter holding this girl's hand like a lifeline. And for the first time, he softened. You've been coming here every day, teaching her in secret. Michelle nodded. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared. He looked at her, and for once his voice lowered. Scared of me? Michelle whispered, scared you wouldn't let me see her again. The billionaire turned back to Folake. She flinched. I'm not here to hurt you, he said slowly. Take me to your mother, please. Folake took a shaky step back. Sir, please, don't punish her. She doesn't know what I do here. She's not well. If I stop coming, I'll stay away. Just don't hurt her. I won't, Chief Benjamin Agu said gently. I just want to see her. Michelle looked at her father. Promise you won't chase Folake away. He stared at both girls, 2 children from different worlds, but somehow they had found each other. I promise, he said. 30 minutes later, the convoy pulled into a dusty street near mile 12. Flies buzzed, the scent of burning trash hung in the air. Folake pointed. She's there. A woman sat on the sidewalk barefoot, rocking back and forth, laughing at nothing. Her clothes were torn, her hair matted. That's my mummy, Folake whispered. Chief Benjamin Agu was silent. He stepped down from the vehicle, walked toward the woman and crouched beside her. Madam, he said softly. The woman looked up. Did you bring this car? I left my wings in your boot. Tears welled in Folake's eyes. I'm going to help her, Chief Benjamin Agu said quietly. I know people. She needs proper care. Please, Folake said, I don't want money. I just want her to be okay. He stood, turned to his assistant and gave orders. Get Dr. Amina on the line. Psychiatric unit, full treatment, no delays. Then he turned back to Folake. And you, Folake's heart raced. From today, you are not a homeless girl, she gasped. He knelt before her, placed a firm hand on her shoulder and looked her in the eyes. You have a father now. Folake didn't believe it at first, even as the car pulled away from the dirty street that had been her entire world. Even as she watched through the tinted glass while her mother was gently lifted into an ambulance, headed for the best psychiatric hospital in Lagos. Even when Michelle held her hand and whispered, You're safe now, she still thought it was a dream. She didn't cry, she didn't smile, she simply stared, trying to understand how a day that started with fear had somehow ended with a billionaire calling her daughter. Chief Benjamin Agu moved fast. By evening, Folake had taken her first proper bath in years. Michelle had given her fresh pajamas. Her hair had been gently combed and packed by one of the housemaids who couldn't hide her surprise when Chief Benjamin Agu introduced her. This is Folake. She'll be staying with us from now on. Treat her with the same respect you give my daughter. The entire house froze. The girl from the street living here. But Chief Benjamin Agu's tone left no room for questions. The next morning, Folake stood in front of the mirror in Michelle's room, wearing a borrowed Queen's Crest school uniform. It was new, crisp, neatly ironed. She could hardly recognize herself. Michelle clapped with delight. You look just like me. Folake smiled weakly. I feel like I'm dreaming. You're not. My daddy said it's real. He said you belong here. But I'm the daughter of a madwoman, Folake said, her voice trembling. Michelle shook her head. No, you're the daughter of my father now. Folake turned slowly to the window, staring into the rising morning light. I don't know how to thank him. Michelle smiled. Then thank him the only way he truly cares about. How? Shine, show the world what you can do. That day, the 2 girls walked into Queen's Crest together. Matching uniforms, matching bags, matching smiles. Gasps followed them. Children whispered. Teachers blinked in confusion. Wasn't that the same street girl who used to hover behind windows and fences? Yes, it was. But today she walked with the daughter of the school's founder. No more sneaking, no more peeping. She had come through the front gate as a student. In class, Folake raised her hand. Every question, every lesson. She wasn't just good. She was brilliant. By the end of the day, the teachers called a meeting with the principal. Where did this girl come from? One asked. She's not just smart. She's exceptional. The principal smiled. From the street, apparently. But now she's family. Meanwhile, Chief Benjamin Agu kept his promise. Folake's mother was placed under expert psychiatric care at a private facility. Dr. Amina assured him that Aduni's condition, while serious, was treatable. "We'll stabilize her," the doctor said. "It will take time. But with love, medication and structure, there's hope." Folake visited her mother once a week. The first few times her mother didn't recognize her. She'd shout at the walls or cry over invisible snakes. But on the fifth visit, she suddenly paused. She looked up at Folake and whispered, You look like the street." Folake burst into tears. Weeks passed. Folake adjusted to her new life slowly. She still woke up some nights gasping, thinking she was back on the sidewalk. She still flinched when someone raised a hand too quickly. But gradually, her smile became freer, her laughter more frequent. She spoke during class, she made new friends. But no one ever took Michelle's place. They were sisters now, not by blood, but by bond. They shared everything, stories, secrets, lunch and dreams. Michelle's grades soared, her confidence bloomed, her teachers marveled, and they all knew why. Because of the girl who used to sit under the mango tree. One Friday afternoon, Chief Benjamin Agu called Folake into his study. She stood nervously by the door. He gestured for her to sit. "I've been watching you," he said. "You've changed my daughter's life and mine." Folake lowered her gaze. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to learn." He chuckled. "And now you will. As far as I'm concerned, you're my child, and I'll do for you what I do for Michelle." He opened a drawer and handed her a brand new tablet, preloaded with all her school materials. Folake stared at it like it was made of gold. Then she whispered, "Thank you, sir. Thank you for seeing me, when nobody else did." He stood and placed a gentle hand on her head. "You were never invisible, Folake. You just needed someone to look close enough." That night, Folake sat in the garden under the mango tree, now neatly trimmed, surrounded by clean tiles and benches. She looked up at the stars. "My name is Folake," she whispered. "Daughter of no one, friend of Michelle, student of Queen's Crest." And now she smiled. "I have a father." She closed her eyes and whispered a final prayer. "God, I used to ask you to make my mother better, to send me to school, to give me just one friend. You gave me all three. I don't deserve it, but thank you." She placed a hand over her heart. "I promise I won't waste this chance." And so the girl the world called daughter of the mad woman became something far greater. A symbol of hope, a walking miracle, a living answer to her own desperate prayer. And for Chief Benjamin Agu, for Michelle, and for everyone who ever believed that love and education can change a life, Folake was proof. The future had finally opened its doors, and she walked through them, head held high. Eager to find out what happens next in this story? Comment continue below. She was once a barefoot girl peeking through a classroom window, the daughter of a mad woman, rejected by society, forgotten by the world. But today she's no longer on the streets. She's back in school, this time in one of the best private schools in town, under the care of a powerful billionaire, while her mentally ill mother receives treatment in a top psychiatric hospital. But will her mother ever recover? Will Folake finish her education? Or will Chief Benjamin Agu, like Auntie Helen before him, disappear just when she needs him most? Well, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn. This story will leave you speechless. And if you're just tuning in, please subscribe. And don't forget to like this video to support more powerful stories like this. Let's dive in. The air inside the courtroom was still, so still it felt like time itself was holding its breath. Folake sat quietly between Chief Benjamin Agu and Michelle, her palms sweaty, heart thumping in her chest like a wild drum. She wore a simple navy blue dress, freshly ironed by one of the housemaids. Her shoes, her very first pair of real leather flats, pinched her toes slightly, but she didn't mind. Today wasn't about comfort, it was about belonging. She glanced up at the towering walls, the rustle of papers, the cold faces of lawyers and reporters, the old fan rotating lazily overhead. Everything felt too big, too official. She was just a girl from the street, wasn't she? Folake Agu, her name, spoken aloud by the judge. She flinched. "Yes, sir," she whispered, barely audible. The judge was a tall man with grey sideburns and glasses that slid down the bridge of his nose every few seconds. But his eyes were kind, softer than she expected. "Do you understand why we're here today?" Folake swallowed. "Yes, sir. Chief Benjamin Agu wants to adopt me." "And how do you feel about that?" Her throat tightened. She looked at Chief Benjamin Agu, who gave her a small nod. Reassuring, steady, like the ground beneath her feet when the world shook. "I feel like I'm finally home," she whispered. The judge leaned forward slightly. "Are you sure you want this? You're not being forced." Folake turned to Michelle, whose eyes brimmed with silent excitement. Then she looked at the man who had once pulled her from the pit of poverty and placed her at the head of his table. "No one forced me," she said louder now. "I choose him." There was a murmur across the room. The judge smiled gently and turned the page before him. "By the authority vested in this court in the state of Lagos, I hereby approve the petition of Chief Benjamin Agu to adopt the minor Folake into his legal and rightful custody." He raised the gavel. "This court recognizes Folake Agu as the lawful daughter of Chief Benjamin Agu from this day forward." Bang! The gavel struck wood and something inside Folake shattered. Something heavy, something old. The walls around her heart that had stood like prison gates since childhood finally crumbled. She wasn't nobody anymore. She was Folake Agu, daughter of a billionaire, daughter of love. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. She gasped as Michelle wrapped her arms around her neck, sobbing into her shoulder. "We're sisters now," Michelle cried. "We've always been," Folake whispered. The media outside exploded with questions as the three stepped out of the courtroom. Cameras flashed. Reporters shoved microphones in their faces. "Chief Benjamin Agu, why adopt a street girl?" "Folake, how do you feel today?" "Michelle, what does this mean for your family?" But none of them mattered, not now. Chief Benjamin Agu placed a protective hand on Folake's shoulder and said only one thing. "She is my daughter and I'm proud of her." Later that evening, back at the mansion, the staff had prepared a small welcome celebration. Balloons floated in the living room. The cook prepared fried rice and peppered chicken. Even the housekeeper, who once frowned at Folake's dusty feet, now smiled and handed her a wrapped gift. Michelle grabbed her by the hand and led her to the dining room, where a white cake stood on the table. It read, "Welcome home, Folake Agu." She stood there stunned. She'd never had a cake with her name on it. She'd never even had a real birthday. Now this. Michelle handed her a knife. "Cut it, let's celebrate your new life." Folake stared at the icing, her hands trembling, but just before she cut into it, she turned to Chief Benjamin Agu. Her voice quivered. "Why me, sir? There are so many children like me. Why did you choose me?" Chief Benjamin Agu didn't speak right away. He walked to her, knelt so their eyes were level, and replied, "Because when I found you, you had nothing. But you gave my daughter everything. Joy, confidence, hope. And without even knowing it, you gave me something too. A second chance to be a father." Folake's lips trembled. "I don't know how to be a daughter. I've never had a family." He smiled gently. "Then we'll learn together." She nodded slowly, then sliced into the cake. That night, as the celebration faded and the mansion quieted down, Folake sat on the balcony outside her new bedroom, staring at the stars. Her heart felt full but confused. How had a girl from the gutter ended up in a place like this? "God," she whispered into the night, "I don't deserve this, but thank you. I promise I won't let you down." Somewhere down the hallway, Michelle was already snoring. Somewhere across town, her mother slept in a hospital bed, still calling stars by the wrong names. And somewhere deep within her soul, Folake felt something she had never known before. Peace, real peace, because finally, at last, she was no longer alone. She was no longer forgotten. She was home. The stage was set, literally. Red carpet lined the floor of the Grand Lagos Civic Center. Banners hung proudly across the hall, reading National Spelling Bee Championship. The Minds of Tomorrow. News crews were everywhere. Flashbulbs burst. Parents murmured nervously in the crowd. Children whispered rehearsed words under their breath. But backstage in the far left corner, Folake sat quietly, legs crossed, eyes closed. Her lips moved without sound. She was spelling, not out loud, but in her mind. CONQUERREDEMPTIONINTELLIGIBLE. Words were her comfort zone now, each one a key unlocking the doors poverty had once sealed. Michelle nudged her gently. Nervous? Folake opened her eyes. No, just ready. Michelle smiled. Let's do this for the mango tree. Folake grinned. For the mango tree. They were among the top 5 finalists in the country, each one a child genius from a top-tier private school. All of them wore freshly ironed uniforms and confident smirks until they saw Folake and Michelle step forward. The announcer took the stage. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are down to our final 3 contestants. Applause erupted from Queen's Crest International, Miss Michelle Agu, and Miss Folake Agu. The crowd murmured. Some whispered, "That's the girl from the news. The one Chief Benjamin Agu adopted. Wasn't she homeless?" Folake heard them, but she didn't flinch. She looked out at the front row, where Chief Benjamin Agu sat in a grey kaftan, calm and composed. His eyes met hers. He gave a slow, firm nod. She nodded back. The spelling rounds began. One by one, students were eliminated. Words twisted tongues, nerves betrayed sharp minds. But Folake, she flowed like water, her voice steady, her memory flawless. Philanthropy, ecclesiastical, ubiquitous. Correct, correct, correct. Michelle was just behind her, matching her for every round. The 2 girls, now known nationwide as the Queens of Queen's Crest, became the talk of the room. And then it came down to just 2. Michelle, Folake, best friends, sisters, now rivals. The announcer cleared his throat. Miss Michelle Agu, please step forward. Michelle adjusted her collar and approached the microphone. Your word is chiaroscuro. Michelle blinked. Chiaroscuro. She took a breath. Chiaroscuro. The judge's eyebrows twitched. A buzzer rang. The announcer winced. Incorrect, it's chiaroscurono E. Michelle bit her lip, face falling, but she turned and gave Folake a thumbs up. No bitterness, no envy, just pride. It was now Folake's turn. The hall was silent. The announcer stepped forward. Miss Folake Agu, if you spell this correctly, you will be our national champion. She stepped up. Your word is epistemology. The room collectively inhaled, the kind of word that paralyzes even the best students. But Folake didn't blink. She whispered to herself, Epi means knowledge, like epiphany. Then she said it clearly, EPISTEMOLOGY. A heartbeat passed. Correct. The audience exploded. Chief Benjamin Agu stood. Michelle clapped so hard her palms turned red. Folake stood frozen for a moment. She had done it. From writing in the dust with a stick to holding the national trophy in her hand, she was the youngest girl in Nigeria's history to win the spelling bee. News agencies flooded the stage. Folake Agu, from street to stardom. Chief Benjamin Agu's adopted daughter spells her way to history. That night, Folake and Michelle were all over social media. Not everyone celebrated. An anonymous user uploaded an old photo of Folake, barefoot, dusty, sitting beside her mother in rags. Then came the tweets. This is the champion? A gutter girl, Chief Benjamin Agu is embarrassing his legacy. Keep your orphans off national TV. Pity adoption for PR. The comments stung. Michelle found Folake sitting alone on the balcony that night, scrolling through the hate. Turn it off, Michelle whispered. Folake's eyes stayed fixed on the screen. Why do they hate me for surviving? They hate what they can't understand, Michelle replied, but you don't have to let their words stick. Folake looked up. But what if they're right? What if I don't belong here? Michelle walked forward and hugged her from behind. Then none of us do. Chief Benjamin Agu joined them moments later. He sat beside Folake, took her phone gently, and placed it face down. Let me tell you something, he said. When I was a young man building my first company, people called me a bush boy with no class. Now those same people beg me for partnerships. He turned to her. They laughed when you wrote in the dirt. Now they're choking on your dust. You don't need to prove yourself anymore, Folake. You've already done the impossible. Folake blinked away tears. It still hurts. I know, he said softly, but scars make us human. Let them talk. Their noise is just proof that you're rising. Michelle smiled. Exactly. They're watching your feet because they're scared of your wings. Folake chuckled through her tears, then she whispered, Let's fly. The letter came in a plain white envelope, no fanfare, no golden seal, no fireworks, just a return address stamped in tiny print. Global Scholars Program, International Education Fund, Washington, D.C., USA. Folake almost threw it away. She had applied months ago after one of her teachers secretly submitted her name, attaching a glowing recommendation and her spelling bee footage. There had been over 18,000 applicants from around Africa. The odds were laughable. Still, she had dared to hope. She sat in her room staring at the envelope for 10 full minutes before opening it. Michelle barged in without knocking. Are you okay? The cook said you've been quiet since morning. I think, Folake whispered, holding up the letter, I just got into the most prestigious scholarship in the world. Michelle froze, then screamed. That evening, the Agu mansion turned into a celebration ground. Folake had not only been accepted into the Global Scholars Program, she had ranked first out of all African applicants. Her acceptance came with a full scholarship to one of the top STEM boarding schools in the United States, a travel stipend, a laptop and learning tools, and mentorship by professors from Harvard, MIT, and Oxford. When Chief Benjamin Agu saw the letter, he didn't smile right away. He just stared at it, then at her, then stood up and walked out of the room. Folake's heart dropped. Had she upset him? Was he angry? She followed him to the backyard, where he stood quietly under the mango tree, their tree. She approached carefully. Sir? He didn't turn. Do you know what I was doing when I was your age? He asked softly. Folake shook her head. I was selling kerosene by the roadside, barefoot, skipping meals so my younger brothers could eat. He turned to her then. His eyes were full, glassy. You were sitting in the dust with nothing, teaching my daughter from scraps. Now you're going to represent this country on a global stage. Tears rolled freely now. I'm not just proud of you, Folake. I'm honored to know you. Folake blinked hard to hold back her own tears. I couldn't have done it without you. He walked over and placed both hands on her shoulders. No, you did it in spite of everything. I was just a witness. News of Folake's scholarship broke the next day. Homeless girl turned national champion, wins US scholarship. From street to STEM, meet Nigeria's rising genius. Folake Agu makes Africa proud. TV stations called. UNICEF requested an interview. Celebrities posted her photo with captions like Black Girl Magic and Let's invest in education. But even as the world celebrated her, Folake's heart remained split. While she packed her bags and prepared for a new world, a small part of her was afraid. What if she got there and didn't fit in? What if they laughed at her accent? What if she failed? The night before her flight, she sat again under the mango tree with Michelle. The breeze was soft, the moon full. Michelle plaited Folake's hair slowly, both of them in silence. I'm going to miss you, Michelle finally said. Folake nodded. Me too. I wish I could come with you. You'll visit, Folake said quickly, and I'll call every day. Michelle sighed. Promise me something. Anything. No matter how big your world gets, don't forget who you are. Folake smiled. I'll never forget. I'm the daughter of a mad woman and the sister of the bravest girl I know. They both laughed through tears. The next morning, the convoy left for the airport. Folake wore a navy blue blazer with gold buttons, the uniform of the Global Scholars Program. Her passport was tucked safely in her bag, along with photos of Michelle and a worn-out notepad she refused to throw away. As they reached the terminal, Chief Benjamin Agu pulled her aside. There's something I need to give you. He handed her a black box. She opened it slowly. Inside was a gold necklace, a small pendant carved in the shape of a mango leaf. She looked up, stunned. I had it made, he said, so you'll never forget where you came from. Folake's eyes blurred with tears. He fastened it around her neck, then hugged her, the longest, strongest hug she'd ever received. "My daughter," he whispered, "fly and don't look back unless it's to help someone else up." She nodded against his chest. "I will." As she boarded the plane, she turned one last time. Michelle stood at the glass, waving furiously, tears streaming down her cheeks. Chief Benjamin Agu stood beside her, hand on Michelle's shoulder. Folake placed her palm on the window and whispered, "I'll make you proud." The engines roared, the runway stretched ahead, and with one final breath, she took off. Not just into the sky, but into destiny. 3 months had passed since Folake left for the United States. Her life had become a whirlwind of labs, libraries, and leadership seminars. She walked hallways with students from over 40 countries, discussed climate change with scientists, and presented a paper on neurological learning in children, all while wearing a badge that read Folake Agu, Nigeria. But back home, something just as extraordinary was happening. Aduni, the woman the world had called mad, was waking up. Dr. Amina had warned Chief Benjamin Agu that recovery would be slow, uncertain, and painful. "Psychosis that has lasted this long doesn't heal overnight," she had explained. "But your consistent support, the medication, and a safe environment are making a difference." At first, there were only flickers. Aduni blinking at sunlight without screaming, whispering lullabies instead of shouting at walls. Then came the day she asked, "Where's my plate?" like a person fully present. The medical team watched her like a miracle. By month 4, she could string conversations. By month 5, she was attending therapy and asking questions. And by month 6, the question came, "Where's my daughter?" The nurse froze. "Your daughter?" "Yes," Aduni said softly, tapping her chest. "She used to call me Mummy." "Where is she?" The hospital immediately contacted Chief Benjamin Agu. Within hours, he booked a flight and called Folake overseas. "Your mother is coming back," he said gently, "and she's asking for you." Folake's heart skipped. Is she okay?" "She's not the same, but she's no longer lost." Tears pooled in her eyes. "I'm coming home." It was raining the morning Folake arrived at the hospital. She stepped out of the car slowly, clutching a bouquet of sunflowers. Aduni's favorite, or at least the flower she used to mumble about during lucid moments. Michelle joined her, holding an umbrella over both of them. "Ready?" she asked. Folake nodded, though her stomach felt like it was in knots. They walked through the hospital's psychiatric wing, greeted by nurses who all knew her story. "She looks so much like her mother," one whispered. They arrived at the visitation room. Aduni sat on a bench, staring out of the window, dressed in a clean Ankara wrapper and sweater. Her hair was combed into neat braids, her skin glowing from months of care. Folake took a deep breath, then stepped inside. "Mommy." Aduni turned slowly. She blinked, paused, then tilted her head. "I'm sorry," she said slowly. "Do I know you?" Folake's breath caught. "It's me." "Folake, your daughter." Aduni squinted. "My daughter died. They told me she fell into a gutter and the rain took her away." "No, Mommy, I'm here. You used to sing me Yoruba lullabies. You called me princess. We used to beg together at mile 12. The man with the guitar gave us bread once, remember?" Aduni's face remained blank. She looked away, pressing her hand to her forehead. I don't remember." Folake dropped the bouquet. She sank to her knees. Michelle rushed forward, holding her. "It's okay," Michelle whispered. "She's trying. Give her time." But time didn't change what was already breaking. Over the next few days, Folake visited every morning. She brought her mother a new wrapper, some biscuits, an old songbook, and photos. Photos of her at Queen's Crest, at the Spelling Bee, even under the mango tree. But each time Aduni would smile politely, then say, "You're very kind, dear, but I have no daughter." On the 6th day, Folake snapped. She stood up from her chair, voice cracking. "Do you know what I went through? I bathed you with gutter water. I carried you across the street while people threw stones at us. I fed you soaked gari while I starved. I fought boys who laughed at you. And now you don't even remember me." Her mother stared blankly. Folake turned and ran out of the room. Michelle found her sitting under a mango tree planted outside the hospital garden, hugging her knees. "She's gone," Folake whispered. "She's alive, but she's not my mother." Michelle sat beside her. No, she's just healing. The mind heals like broken bones, not all at once, and sometimes not the way we expect. Folake wept into her arms. On her final day before returning to the US, she went to say goodbye. She found Owumi singing to a flower in a vase. Folake knelt beside her and said softly, "Even if you don't remember me, I will always remember you." She placed a framed photo in Owumi's hands, one they had taken in the early days at Queen's Crest under the mango tree. In it, Folake was smiling. Owumi, though wild-eyed, was laughing. Owumi stared at the photo for a long time, then said, "She looks like me." Folake smiled through her tears. "She is you." Owumi turned to her and placed a hand on her cheek. "You have a beautiful heart, my dear." Folake placed her hand over her mother's. "You gave it to me." As she walked out of the hospital, Folake whispered a silent prayer. "God, if she never remembers, it's okay. Just keep her safe, keep her smiling." That night, Chief Benjamin Agu hugged her. "She may not remember your face," he said, "but the love you gave her, it's still there. Somewhere inside. And that love made you who you are." Folake nodded. "Maybe that's enough." It began with a knock on the mansion gate, not a loud, impatient knock, but deliberate, calculated, quiet, yet filled with intention. The gatekeeper at the Agu residence, Yakubu, opened the small hatch to see a man in a faded brown suit. His face weathered by time and hard living, his eyes were sharp, cold, and too familiar. "I'm here to see Chief Benjamin Agu," the man said. "Your name, sir?" He held out a stained envelope. "Give him this." "He'll understand." Inside the envelope was a letter. Simple, no greetings, no title. "I am the biological father of Folake. Her mother's name is Owumi. I abandoned her years ago, but I have come for my child. I am ready to take her back now. Signed, Oluwaseun Adebayo." When Chief Benjamin Agu read it, something inside him hardened. The hand that had carried Folake, fought for her, adopted her, now trembled. Not out of fear, but fury. He took a deep breath, then called Folake. When she walked into the study, she saw a man sitting across from Chief Benjamin Agu. Tall, dark skin, with a crooked smile and eyes that scanned her like property. Folake paused at the door. Chief Benjamin Agu stood. "Folake, this is Mr. Oluwaseun. He claims to be your biological father." The room froze. She blinked. "My what?" The man stood and nodded. "You've grown. You look just like your mother." She backed up slightly. "How do you know her?" He shrugged. "She was mine long ago until she went mad." Folake felt her knees weaken. Michelle, standing quietly in the corner, stepped closer to her. "You abandoned us," Folake whispered. "I didn't abandon," Oluwaseun replied coolly. "I left. There's a difference. Your mother was never stable. She was dangerous. I couldn't raise a child in that mess." "You told her to abort me," Folake said, her voice cracking. "She told me, and you disappeared for over a decade." "I was scared," he barked. "I was young. I had nothing, but now you're somebody. You're a star. I came to take you home." Chief Benjamin Agu's voice sliced through the air. "She has a home," Oluwaseun sneered. "You think money makes you her father? You think adoption papers erase blood?" "She's my daughter in every way that counts," Chief Benjamin Agu said calmly. "You only showed up after the world began clapping." Oluwaseun stepped forward. "I don't want your money, sir. I just want my child, my flesh, my legacy." Folake stood frozen between two men, one who helped create her body, the other who saved her soul. "I don't even know you," she whispered. "You weren't there when I was sick. When I slept in gutters, when I begged for food, when I held my mother as she screamed in the middle of traffic. You weren't there." "I didn't know you were alive," he shouted. "Yet you knew to come when I made headlines," Folake replied. Oluwaseun's eyes narrowed. "If you don't come willingly, we can take this to court. You're a minor, and I'm your blood." Silence, then Chief Benjamin Agu nodded. "Fine, we'll let the court decide." And so it began. The legal battle shook the city. Social media buzzed. Some supported Oluwaseun. He made a mistake. But he's still her father. She has a right to know her real roots. Others stood with Chief Benjamin Agu. A man who runs from fatherhood should never be allowed to return just to reap glory. Folake was a street girl until Chief Benjamin Agu stepped in. Blood doesn't raise a child. Love does. The court demanded DNA testing. It confirmed it. Oluwaseun was Folake's biological father, but the final verdict depended on one thing: Folake's own testimony. Would she return to a man who left her for dead, or stay with the one who fought to bring her back to life? The courtroom was silent, yet it roared with tension. Papers rustled, shoes scraped, a dozen reporters huddled near the back, pens poised. But all eyes were on one girl, Folake. She stood alone, small in size, but towering in presence. Her braids were pulled neatly into a bun. She wore a navy blazer with gold buttons, Queen's Crest uniform. Her posture was straight, but her fingers trembled ever so slightly. The judge adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. Miss Folake Agu, before this court gives its ruling, you have the right to be heard. Who do you choose to be your legal guardian going forward? For a moment, no one breathed. Folake took a step forward and looked at the two men seated at opposite sides of the courtroom. To the left sat Oluwaseun Adebayo, her biological father. He wore a borrowed suit and had a legal team behind him, paid by a sponsor who smelled publicity. He looked uncomfortable in the role of father, but desperate for relevance. To the right sat Chief Benjamin Agu, dignified in a dark blue kaftan, his eyes calm but unreadable. He hadn't said much throughout the trial, letting his love and his record speak louder than any testimony. Folake turned back to the judge. Her voice was soft at first. When I was born, one man gave me life, but then he left. She swallowed hard. My mother begged him to stay. He walked away. He never returned, never checked on us. Not once, not when we slept in gutters, not when we were starving, not when people called us cursed. Her eyes filled, but she held her composure. I used to dream he'd come back and say sorry, that he'd kneel down and hug me and say I was wrong. But he didn't. He only came back when I was on the news. When I won, when I was worth something. She turned to look directly at Oluwaseun. I forgive you, sir, but I don't owe you my future. The courtroom shifted, whispers, stunned glances. Folake turned again to Chief Benjamin Agu. But this man found me in rags, under a mango tree, teaching his daughter with a stick in the dirt. I didn't ask for help. I didn't even know how to ask. But he gave me more than help. She placed a hand on her heart. He gave me a name, a bed, a toothbrush, a chance. She smiled. He taught me what it means to be loved. And never once has he asked for anything in return. Tears now streamed down her cheeks, but her voice only grew stronger. So I choose him. I choose Chief Benjamin Agu, not because he's rich, not because he's famous, but because he saw me. When the world walked past me, she turned back to the judge. I choose the man who gave me life by loving me, not just the one who helped me exist. Silence, then a single clap. It came from the back of the room. Michelle, who had snuck into the gallery, her eyes wet with pride. More claps followed. The judge tapped his gavel gently. This court hereby rules in favor of continued custody under Chief Benjamin Agu. All biological claims are considered closed. This case is settled. Outside, the media swarmed. Microphones, cameras, flashes. Folake. What do you say to those who say blood is thicker than water? Did you reject your father for money? What happens to your real family now? Folake simply raised her chin and said, "Love is thicker than blood," and walked into Chief Benjamin Agu's waiting arms. That evening back at the mansion, there was no party, no press conference, just peace. The kind of quiet that wraps around you like a warm blanket. Michelle, barefoot, sat cross-legged on the rug as Folake curled up beside her on the couch. I was scared, Folake whispered. Michelle grinned. You didn't look scared. You looked like a queen. Folake smiled, but her eyes turned distant. 10 years later, the once dusty courtyard of Queen's Crest International School now had a golden plaque near the front gate. In honor of Folake Agu, from street to scholar. Inside the grand event hall, lights shimmered from crystal chandeliers. Soft music played from a string quartet, and guests in suits and gowns gathered in celebration. Cameras flashed as two women stepped onto the red carpet arm in arm. Dr. Folake Agu, now 22, radiant in a fitted green gown, her name embroidered in gold thread along the hem. And beside her, Barrister Michelle Agu, dressed in deep blue, the same color she wore the day they met under the mango tree. The two sisters, once student and teacher, now stood as equals. Icons, leaders, change makers. Folake had just completed her medical degree with distinction, but not just any medical degree. She specialized in neuropsychiatry, the very field that once defined her deepest wound. She now walked hospital corridors with confidence, diagnosing patients, treating trauma, and restoring dignity to those whom the world had labeled crazy. Because she knew their pain, she had lived it. She had held her mother's hand when no one else would. Michelle, on the other hand, had become one of Nigeria's youngest and most fearless human rights lawyers. She defended children accused of witchcraft, advocated for prison reform, and was known in the courts as the voice of the voiceless. But tonight they weren't in court or at a hospital. They were at the official launch of their joint foundation, the Mango Tree Foundation for Mental Health and Dignity, a non-profit built to provide free mental health care, safe homes, therapy and rehabilitation to mentally ill individuals and their families across Nigeria, especially the poor, the homeless and the forgotten. As the program began, the MC took the stage. Tonight, he said, we celebrate not just two brilliant women, but a vision born from ashes, a friendship born under a mango tree, and a love story, not of romance, but of redemption. Applause thundered. Michelle stepped up first. She took a deep breath, scanning the crowd. I remember being called dumb, she began, her voice calm but strong. I remember teachers rolling their eyes when I raised my hand. I remember feeling small, unworthy, invisible, until a barefoot girl in rags taught me that my mind was not broken. It was just waiting for the right teacher. She turned to Folake and smiled. She was that teacher. The crowd clapped as Michelle stepped back and gestured for Folake to come forward. Folake approached the mic, holding a small notepad, not because she needed it, but because she still carried reminders of where she came from. I was called the daughter of a mad woman, she said plainly. I was chased from schools, slapped by strangers, and laughed at while my mother begged for bread. The hall grew quiet. I never thought I'd be standing here, let alone wearing a doctor's coat, let alone opening a foundation, but I'm here because one man saw me, one girl believed in me, and one mango tree became my classroom. You know, for a long time, I thought being wanted by my real father would fix something. Like maybe if he came back, it would heal the hole I carried. Michelle was quiet, but now I know that hole was filled a long time ago, not by him, but by all of you. By Dad, by you, by this home. Michelle leaned over and rested her head on her sister's shoulder. You were never missing a father, Folake. You were just waiting for the right one. Later that night, as guests sipped juice and celebrated, Chief Benjamin Agu stood in a quiet corner of the courtyard, smiling silently as he watched the two young women. Michelle was speaking to a judge from Abuja. Folake was laughing with a group of international doctors, two girls he had once called my daughters, now leaders in their own right. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you, God. You gave me daughters I didn't ask for, but I will spend my life protecting." The following week, the foundation opened its first facility. It was a bright, clean space in Lagos mainland, offering free therapy, medication, meals, and shelter to people suffering from schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, postpartum depression, and trauma. The reception area had a mural on one wall, a large painting of a mango tree with two girls sitting underneath it, one in a blazer, one in a ragged dress, both smiling. Above them were words written in golden ink. Love can teach what textbooks cannot. Dignity is a human right. No mind is too broken to heal. On the day of the ribbon cutting, a familiar face walked in. Aduni, Folake's mother, now stable, living in a group home and helping teach art therapy to other patients. When she saw the mural, she paused. "That's beautiful," she whispered. "It looks like someone I used to know." Folake smiled from behind the desk. She didn't correct her. She didn't need to, because some memories live in the heart, even when the mind forgets. And so the daughter of a mad woman became a healer of the mind. And the girl once called dumb became a defender of truth. Together, they built not just a foundation, but a future. The sun was beginning to set over Lagos, casting long golden shadows across the courtyard of the newly opened mango tree foundation. Children played by the side garden. A woman in a lilac headscarf swept the front steps, humming softly. Inside the hall, soft gospel music played over the speakers as nurses handed out evening medication to the residents. But outside, under the real mango tree planted at the center of the compound, Folake sat alone. Barefoot, peaceful. No security guards, no cameras, no media attention. Just her, a gentle breeze, and the quiet rustle of mango leaves overhead. She was no longer the girl who had hidden behind school windows. She was Dr. Folake Agu, one of the youngest neuropsychiatrists in the country. But even with all the titles and accolades, she still returned to this tree. Because it was under a mango tree where her life had changed, where she first taught, where she was first seen, where hope was born. Footsteps approached behind her. "You're hiding again," Michelle teased, plopping beside her on the grass in a crisp white blouse and black heels. "I'm reflecting," Folake replied, eyes still closed. Michelle grinned. "Same thing." They sat in silence for a while, watching the sky change color. "Do you ever miss it?" Michelle asked suddenly. "Miss what?" "The mango tree at Queen's Crest. The way we used to sneak lunch together, solve math problems, and dream about what we'd become." Folake opened her eyes and smiled. "I don't miss it. I carry it." Michelle turned. "What do you mean?" Folake pointed to her chest. "It's here. Every time I speak to a patient who's forgotten their name. Every time I hug a mother who thinks her child is cursed. Every time I see a girl with a notepad under a bridge, I remember who I was. And I remember what we built." Michelle nodded, emotion catching in her throat. "You think people will ever stop judging the mentally ill?" Folake was quiet for a moment, then said, "Maybe not. But even if they don't, they'll never be able to say again that no one cared." Later that evening, the foundation held a quiet memorial in honor of a patient who had passed away. An elderly woman who died peacefully in her sleep, holding a photo of her son she hadn't seen in 30 years. Folake led the prayer. Afterwards, she stood with the woman's daughter holding her hand. "She was not mad," Folake said. "She was misunderstood. And now she is free." The woman wept into her arms. Michelle watched from a distance. "She's not just a doctor," one of the nurses whispered nearby. "She's a light." And truly, Folake had become more than her name. She had become a symbol of survival, of education, of second chances. That weekend, Chief Benjamin Agu threw a private dinner in the mansion garden. Just family and close friends. Aduni was there, sitting gracefully, her eyes clearer than they had ever been. She no longer remembered the streets or the voices that haunted her. But she remembered music. She sang softly that night as a young boy strummed a guitar nearby. Folake watched her from across the table, holding back tears. Michelle leaned in. "She may not remember you fully, but you made her whole again." Folake nodded. "And that's enough." Later that night, Chief Benjamin Agu stood to give a toast. "To daughters," he said, raising his glass. "Daughters who remind us that family isn't who we create. It's who we fight for." He looked at both girls. "You saved my life, each in your own way, and through you, many more will live." Folake stood next. She turned to him. "I used to beg the stars to just see me. Not to rescue me, not to make me rich, just see me. And then one day a man did." She raised her glass to the man who didn't just see a mad woman's child, but saw a daughter. The room went silent. Then applause erupted. As the night wound down, Folake returned to her room, the same guest room that had become hers over a decade ago. She opened her drawer and pulled out her most prized possession. A small old notepad with frayed edges. Inside were faded scribbles, math problems written with charcoal, vowel sounds from the day she hid by the window, even Michelle's name written in shaky handwriting with a blunt pencil. She held it to her chest and whispered, "I made it, Mama." The next morning, as the gates of the Mango Tree Foundation opened to welcome a new batch of patients and volunteers, Folake stood at the entrance beside Michelle. They wore matching shirts with the foundation's logo. Below the logo were the words, "No one is too broken to be healed." Folake looked at the crowd, young people, elderly women, teachers, university students, journalists, all inspired by what two girls under a mango tree had started. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. Today, across Nigeria, the Mango Tree Foundation has opened 6 centers in 5 different states. Thousands have been treated, hundreds reunited with families, and dozens have gone on to become advocates themselves. But it all began with a homeless girl, a broken mother, a window, a friendship, and a mango tree. Folake's name is now listed among Nigeria's most influential young women. But if you ask her where it all started, she'll smile, point to her heart, and say, "Right there in the dirt, with a pencil and a dream." Folake's story reminds us that no child is born worthless, and no condition makes someone unlovable. It proves that one act of kindness, one chance, one friendship can spark a legacy that changes the world. Share your thoughts in the comments. What touched you most in this journey? Don't forget to like this video if it inspired you. Share with someone who needs hope today. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our next powerful story. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, there is always hope, even under a mango tree. The end. No child is born worthless. Every life holds potential. With kindness, opportunity, and education, even the most forgotten soul can rise. Folake's story reminds us that one act of compassion can break cycles of poverty and rejection. True greatness isn't where you come from, but what you do when someone finally sees you. Believe, uplift, and never judge a child by their circumstance. We hope you enjoyed this powerful story. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share what you learned in the comments below. Your feedback means the world to us. And guess what? Another inspiring and educative story is coming your way in just a few days. So make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to be the first to watch when we upload. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and share it with your family and friends. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you.